right, guys, welcome to the second topic for strength and conditioning for second nature football. Look, guys, we're going to get straight into it. So yeah, if there's any questions at all during the presentation or after, please reach out. So I'm just going to share my screen now. All right. So we're going to go straight into it, guys. All right, guys. So the second topic for strength and conditioning. So taking off from what we discussed last time. So last time was a bit of a general framework in terms of what strength and conditioning was and how each athlete is different and has a specific program to the sport. Now we're going to progress a little bit more in terms of how the injuries and the strength work can be related to the activity that you're going to do. So pretty much, guys, just recapping on what we discussed last time. Essentially, the common injuries that we found in soccer players, according to a few studies, were slightly different to females and males. Females had a common injury, was quite well known to have knee injuries, specifically ACL injuries, so any ligament injuries to the knee. And then for females, it went to an ankle injury and then a hamstring. Whereas for males, the common injuries were hamstring strains, then it went to knee injuries and then ankle injuries. So it was just a little bit of an interesting, pretty much information that was displayed in terms of how just gender alone can impact someone's potential risk for injury. And through that, again, touching base it was quite common for injuries to occur, especially in the first 15 minutes of the match versus and as well as the last 15 minutes of the match. So that was just a bit of a recap in terms of the last topic, as I said. But again, these injuries happen for many reasons, many variables. Now, just quickly recapping again in terms of what injuries are. So as an athlete, you're going to come across many words, many types of sayings. And firstly, we're going to try to differentiate the difference between a sprain and a strain. So the hamstrings, the thighs, they're all muscles. The muscles, pretty much what they do, muscles just contract. Imagine the muscles like an elastic band. They just pretty much move back and forth, help you move. Whereas a joint, so pretty much the knee is a joint, the ankle is a joint. They pretty much just are a connection between two or more bones. So imagine just two objects just connecting. They are the joints, around the knees, around the ankles, where they're covered by ligaments. Now, the ligaments help to create structure, firm, for pretty much protecting these areas. So a strain is when there is damage to the muscle. A sprain is when there's damage to the ligament, so those joints. So just a future reference, guys, when you hear those, remember if there's an injury, sprain is for the muscle. Oh, sorry, sprain is for the ligament, my apologies. Strain is for the muscle. Okay, and as you can see through the arrows there, in those little circle areas, the white bit there is the connection from the muscle to the bone. That's a little bit different. That's a tendon. Again, and then down here, you've got these ligaments, which are the joints here. But again, we won't go too much in depth in that. This is just an overall kind of, again, introduction to how these injuries are different. But in terms of that, what do we do to reduce these injuries in sport? Okay, they happen for many reasons. Okay, whether it's biomechanical inefficiencies, okay, fatigue, the last 15 minutes of the match, contact injuries from people going to tackles. There's sometimes, unfortunately, there's not too much you can do about those tackles. Overuse injuries, again, through fatigue, maybe just training too much or playing too many games. Poor recovery, this is surely going to be something, a topic that's always going to be discussed. And inadequate warm-ups, So these are all just general things of how injuries occur. But what do we do to reduce this? So again, there's just a bit of an image there again of what happens to a muscle. And last week I touched base on how the muscle is quite elastic. Again, that elastic analogy, once it goes past that point, that's when you start causing a little bit of damage. But when you train, and the importance of being strong, is to reinforce these areas here and even be able to improve this area of stress. So instead of getting injured here, maybe you need a stimulus a little bit higher up here, okay? So yeah, what do we do to reduce this? And this is where I have decided to give a bit of a home movement strength screen, obviously touching base from what we spoke about last time. Now, these are things that I want you guys to do at home, have a crack at this, and pretty much following on from a question that we had last time was, what's the progression? How do I start, being a young athlete, even being 10 years old, 11 years old, even as a 16-year-old, being a teenager. There are certain movements that need to be well done, essentially. There is no point progressing an athlete. There's no point progressing anyone if they can't do the foundations right at all. So I've put down 8 exercises that we're going to go through in terms of what I want you doing, what I want you to focus on. And that's going to serve as a bit of a screening in terms of, maybe I need to improve a little bit on this versus, I'm actually doing quite good in that. Okay. I'll see if I can just move this out of the way. And guys, let me know if you do have any questions. I'll just put myself there just in the background. Okay, beautiful. So moving on. Number 1, a plank. So I'll just move this up here. Now, the plank, guys, it's a very common exercise that we see across everywhere, through, just overall physical activity, in the gyms, in team sports. It is a very basic exercise and needs to be well done. So what is a plank? What are we looking for? Essentially, a plank is a general movement. It provides feedback in terms of being able to hold yourself in a correct position, in a correct neutral position. So in the first photo, we're looking at a nice straight line. It's a neutral position. Now, over time, you have to hold yourself in that position. Gravity is going to pull you down, okay? Plank shows us your ability to show us how strong your core is. Now, when there's weaknesses, people compensate. I've seen a lot of juniors, again, a lot of adults as well. They haven't reinforced this. And over time, what you're going to see is either people compensate through the second photo, is they try release and they don't have enough strength through the front areas of the stomach, so the core, the frontal core areas, and they try alleviate some of that by bringing the hips up, okay? Whereas the other part is where pretty much they don't have enough strength and they just start caving in. The gravity just takes them down. So this is a very common exercise that, again, needs to be done well, because if you can't do this well, you're not going to be able to do other exercises well. This is a general exercise that everyone must do, especially if as an athlete, as a junior. And as you progress, you're essentially going to find more suitable exercises for your sport. Now, as athletes, I've put down some timelines, some baselines rather, that I want you to aim for. So if you're younger than 12 years old, I want you having an aiming for a minute for this, reinforcing that correct form. If you start losing and noticing any discrepancies, note down when you start losing it. If you're 13 or 16, your target's going to be a minute 30. And if you're greater than 16 years old, definitely a target is more than 2 minutes. So that is our first exercise in terms of what I want you doing at home as a checklist. Now, moving on. Your second exercise, there's going to be a few people, so I'm just bring that down here. I'll remove myself. Now, second exercise, guys, is a side plank. Similar to the first exercise, but again, what are we looking for here? Essentially, guys, it's the ability to hold yourself, hold your body weight, again, in pretty much through one side of your body. Okay, we're focusing through the hips, we're focusing through the lateral side of the outside of your body, and we're trying to see, again, if you have the strength to support yourself as a sport, touching on from what we spoke about last week, your body absorbs and produces more body weight than what you have. So essentially, you know, we saw from that clip in Ronaldo, he produces 5 times his body weight. So again, these things need to be done well. Again, if you're tilting your hips back, again, you're compensating through your hips. You know, there's a few muscles around the hips. You need to adjust it. If you're tilting too far forward, again, you have to be mindful of these positions and focus. Again, everyone's really different in terms of these compensations, but this is something that can be done at home. It's a body weight exercise and it serves as a checklist. So pretty much with that, guys, again, if you're 12 years and under, I want you to aim for about 45 seconds. If you're 13 to 16 years, let's move this again. I want you aiming for about 1:10 to 1:30. Okay. And then if you're greater than 16 years old, definitely need to be pushing that. Want more than 90 seconds for that. So guys, again, really basic exercises, body weight. It's crucial for everyone to do this, and especially as a junior athlete who's looking to progress and be serious and continue in the performance, these things need to be done really well. Now, moving on. The third exercise that I want people to attempt is a single leg glute bridge. Now, this is an exercise that focuses specifically on your hamstrings and your glutes. Now, if you're not familiar with the glutes, they're a very important muscle. It's pretty much muscles like bum muscles. They act as a really important stabilizer, really important force producer. These people forget how important these muscles are. So this exercise actually shows and is able to provide us feedback in terms of where are you getting the strength from? Where are you compensating? Where is the weaknesses? Where are the strengths in this? There are 3 areas that people tend to produce force from and compensate. If it's done well, guys, we're producing force through the glutes, which is your bum muscles, okay? The hamstrings work together and as well as your back because they act as a stabilizer. They all work together. They're all connected in one line, okay? Now, a nice perfect form, you're going to pretty much, from a starting position, hips on the ground, you're going to attempt to push yourself up, okay? Now, for all ages in this, I've set an expectation of 30 repetitions. So pretty much lowering yourself back down, pushing yourself back up. Now, what's common to see if there are discrepancies or compensations, people start using the lower back muscles or they start using the hamstring muscles to do the job of what the glutes should be doing. This is where another basic movement needs to be corrected. Essentially, if you're not using this muscle, the glute, as a primary force producer, you're using muscles that shouldn't be doing its role. And this is where overuse comes in. This is where inefficiencies come in. So again, have a crack and compare it to your other leg. One leg's going to be stronger than the other. Maybe one hamstring is going to be weaker than the other, or you realize that you're really unsteady. Really basic exercise, really crucial, and over time, you should be incorporated as a bit of a warm-up, okay, just to do a bit of a checklist. So again, guys, it's the ratio between the hamstring and glute strength activation, okay, and it's super important. This is almost a checklist, you know, reinforce that you're doing the right things. So yeah, that is your third exercise, a single leg glute bridge. Moving on, guys, something else I want to have a look at, and it's really important, again, as a baseline for juniors, for athletes, a push-up. Now, for some people, it's quite difficult to do a push-up. And at the same time, as a soccer player, why do you need to do a push-up? Well, again, it's a baseline, it's a holistic approach. It shows us the ability to hold a correct position with changing the demands of the upper body, essentially. You know, in soccer, you've got throw-ins, you've got to push people off the ball, you've got to protect the ball. So it's still important to have a strong upper body. But it's not like you're using external weights, external resistance, it's your own body weight. And as an athlete, again, it's super crucial to be able to support your body throughout movement. So guys, The main goal here is when you do a push-up, the goal is to get your hips and your chest to touch the ground at the same time. And when you push yourself off, lifting them off at the same time. Okay. What's quite common that you see is people compensate by getting the chest to touch the ground first. And when they push up, they get the chest to rise first. Okay. This is again a lack of strength through the core region, which again is super important while you do planks. Okay. And again, it's a really important baseline to say, oh, you know what? You're not strong through this. Again, really need to nail this. Now, if you're less than 12 years old, a good way to start is just aim between 5 to 10 repetitions. Okay. Again, if you can do more, perfect, really good. And again, push yourself because everyone has a different baseline. And if you don't get there, that's okay. There are ways to get to that stage. But again, it's body weight. It's crucial to aim to commence doing this. If you're 13 to 16 years old, again, I want you to aim for a little bit higher, 10 to 20 reps. And if you're greater than 16 years old, definitely aim for greater than 20 repetitions. Okay. Again, as a soccer player, as an athlete, it's important to have a holistic approach. So what that means, essentially, you can't just focus on one area. You've got to be strong in all areas. So yeah, guys, this is another exercise you can do at home under supervision. Do it in the gym, wherever you're available, and just make sure the checklist do it well. Okay, and see if you can spot any, discrepancies, any compensations. Look at the hips, look at the chest as well, and yeah, definitely get some feedback. Now, guys, the next exercise or assessment or test that as an athlete or pretty much an active person should be doing is a single leg sit to stand. Now, why are we looking for this? Essentially, it's a variation, a modification of a regular squat. We're isolating your leg strength and when seeing if you can support yourself and produce the force to get yourself up off a bench. When you, as an athlete progresses in the gym, they get doing squats, they're doing lunges, they're doing all these types of variations, and you can be strong. But again, if you can't do the basics right, you're leaving yourself open to pretty much spaces where causes deficiencies, little links that can be broken through fatigue. Now, pretty much in this position, you want to find a chair and make sure your knees nice and bent. Okay, from this position, you're going to push through that foot that's on the ground. Try to push evenly through the foot. Okay, I like to focus on a big toe, little toe, and heel. Imagine your foot is a bit of a tripod. Okay, and you're going to push through all those areas and standing up. Okay, nice and tall. Again, usually what tends to happen, and again, this is where we start realizing where the weakness comes from. The knee starts drifting in, very shaky, whether they're very shaky from the ankle. Okay, do they start shifting the hips side to side? These are the things we need to look for. If you just do a normal squat, because you got both feet on the ground, you're not going to realize and notice if one side's stronger than the other. If you're compensating, if you're tight through one side. Doing this, you will be able to realize if there's a difference. Again, really super important as a baseline in terms of, again, hamstring injuries, knee injuries. You have to be strong to the front of the leg as well. Okay, so with all the ages, again, I'm setting a baseline of 30 repetitions. 30 repetitions is a goal. You're going to get tired, but this is what we want to see. We want to see at what point you get tired. If the right leg, you feel like you only get 16 repetitions and the left leg gets 30 repetitions, well, that shows us that you're more likely going to get injured through the leg that just did 16 reps. You don't have the endurance for that. Okay. So super important, basic exercise, to have a look at. Now, moving on. So in soccer, you run, you change direction, you jump. And a lot of common injuries that occur, especially with ACLs, so knee injuries, ankle injuries, you jump, you have to come back down, you land. Now, when people land through fatigue, whatever it is, maybe just landed awkwardly on an uneven surface, what's going to go? Your ankle's going to roll, okay? Or maybe you're going to do a knee injury, you know, a ACL, so a ligament, a meniscus. So you want to be able to step off with one leg, so it's called a single leg drop land, and you want to see if you can land in a partial squat position with one leg. Again, this is a test where you're absorbing more than your body weight, essentially, because gravity pulls you down depending on how fast you drop down. Your muscles need to absorb the force. Now, there are very different ways to get to this stage. If you, for example, start on the little box and you hop off and you just see like you can't, you're just losing balance, you're landing with 2 feet, it's just not looking as smooth. Okay, there are ways around that. But this is why I've put this in as pretty much, again, a checklist. Where are you at? Are you able to do this? If not, we have to work on your technique. So there's specific landing mechanics for this, okay, to get to this stage. Now, if you are at this stage, especially if you're a little bit older, perfect. Push yourself a little bit more, go a little bit higher. So I've gone from 30 to 45 centimeters. You're increasing the demand, increasing the weight that you need to absorb and challenge yourself. This is what they call a plyometric exercise. Essentially, it's the absorption of force that your body or muscles take. Essentially, it's just jumping exercise. There's, again, many different ways, many different regressions, many different progressions, but it's a good way to have a look at where you are and what you need to be working on. Okay, so guys, moving on. Okay, wrong number there, but anyway, so the first couple of exercises that we went through, again, is strength-based. Okay, you may be doing the movements well with good form. Okay, this one is a flexibility exercise. So again, as there's common hamstring injuries, hamstring strains are one of the most common types of injuries in all sports. Look, this is a very quick way to have a look at your hamstring flexibility. Essentially laying down in your back, attempting to keep your legs straight to see how far you get to. Okay, a little bit of a soft knee is okay, but if you look down here, okay, if your knees are very bent, that shows us there's a lot of hamstring tightness. Okay, if you're getting halfway with your hamstring with a bit of a straight leg, it's still a sign that we really need to work on your flexibility. Okay, now I've got an arrow here because this is a good example and a compensation I see. It's very subtle, is when people lift the leg, okay, this other leg starts to come off the ground a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean the hamstring's tight. It means you're a little bit tight to the other hip, okay? So you want to keep that leg nice and straight, okay, before you pick it up, okay? And just be mindful, if it pops up, this means you get a little bit of a tight hip from the other side. Now, why is it important to have a look at your flexibility? Now, in terms of injuries, hamstring strains, and in terms of that graph that I explained, so if I go back to, if we keep going, this graph here, if you have a range, a flexibility range, it's only up to here, that elastic limit is reduced. So you're giving yourself a bit more prone to injuries because you don't have the flexibility. So essentially you want to have the range to be able to tolerate the movement, go through the movement. If, again, how do you expect to move? You know, how do you expect to reach for a ball if that flexibility is not there? So very quick way just to have a look, keep an eye out, and just to make sure that both legs are even. Okay, so that is a flexibility assessment that can be looked at home. And again, if you've got any questions, reach out to the coaches, the physios, whoever that is familiar with this, and to see if there's any feedback that you can get. Now, guys, the last part that we're going to do, so the last movement, okay, this is, again, since we've gone through most of the things that I've wanted to demonstrate, this is a screening that is done for athletes, for people that are quite active, and because it's a little bit more complex. So it's an overhead squat. So all you need to do is grabbing a broomstick, okay, any broomstick at home will do, and essentially you're going to hold that over your head, okay, standing nice and tall, so there's a nice straight line. Now, your job is to pretty much in a squat position, get as low as you can, and see where the movement of this goes. Now, when I took this photo, it wasn't the best for me. I've actually drifted a fair bit forward, and I feel like my ankles are a little bit stiff here, okay? And again, I didn't really warm up when I was doing these photos, but that tells me I'm very stiff, you know, through the back, a little bit restricted through the ankles, so it's something to be mindful of. Now, why do we do this? What's the reason behind it? It's essentially a movement where you're seeing if you can support all the muscles working together through a range where everything needs to go through. So we've got ankle movement going through here. We've got knee movement going through here. You're bending through the hips. At the same time, you're leaning forward. So this is an exercise that you're pretty much going to find your weaknesses. And this is what we want. We want to be able to find your weaknesses and see what we can work on through here. So this is an overhead squat. It's a great mobility exercise. It's a great exercise to find out where you are. And yeah, definitely important to have a look at. And this is, as strength coaches, as physios, as exercise physiologists, is something we look at through juniors. Now, guys, just recapping on everything we've talked about. Essentially, guys, this is the table. Take a screenshot of it if you need to. Again, it's just a generic baseline, but it's a baseline that's crucial to have. So again, for your planks, for a minimum, especially for your 12 years, we're aiming for that minute. If you're greater than 16 years, definitely push that boundary of greater than 2 minutes with good form. Side planks as well, a little bit lower time frame, 45 seconds to less than 12 years old, 16 years old, we're going for greater than 90 seconds. Okay, the single leg glute bridge is the same across all ages. I want to get it aim a baseline, a target of 30 repetitions. Again, for push-ups in less than 12 years, 5 to 10 reps. Again, reinforce that correct form. You're greater than 16, push that 20 rep barrier. Now, single leg stand as well, 30 repetitions, compare both legs, see where you get. Now, for the single leg drop land, it's a little bit different. It's more looking at the technique and the quality of the landing. So how stable are you? Are you very wobbly? Okay, do you lose your balance? That's what we're looking for. Okay, now in terms of that hamstring flexibility, we're looking at keeping the leg straight and seeing if you can get to that greater than 85 degrees. It's pretty much like that first photo that I showed. Okay, compare it to both sides. And lastly, guys, our overhead squat was that last photo with the broomstick or a dowel, nice and long. Essentially, we're looking at the technique of the movement and the quality of the movement. So guys, pretty much that is a general run through of what I want everyone to attempt. Please feel free to reach out at any point in time. And yeah, we're going to continue building from here. Again, reach out to any of the coaches, reach out to any of the physios and myself. Once we get a baseline through there, we can progress individually. As you're aware, every athlete's different. So guys, I'm going to be wrapping up there. If there's any questions at all, please I'll allow this minute to write some questions. If not, again, please feel free to reach out to myself or Second Nature Football, and happy to provide any additional feedback from there. So yeah, I'll just allow any questions or comments. If not, guys, yeah, we'll leave it there. All right, guys. Look, I think I will leave it there. Thank you for your time. And again, if you've got any questions, guys, please reach out to any one of us, and we're happy to help out. Next week, we've got our physio topic coming up. And yeah, Elliot will explain a bit more in detail in terms of a little bit more in terms of additional injuries and what to do from there. So again, guys, thank you for your time. And please reach out if you've got any questions. Thank you.